Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Sharaad Kuttan, and my guest tonight, Professor Ahimsa Campos-Arceiz from the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. We're talking about megafauna, elephants in particular, but as a prism through which we look at our own ecosystem. Now, you've been working on some research using or tracking elephants as a way of thinking about the way the peninsula in particular and its landscape works. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, I think we have been tracking elephant movements for the last 9 years. And I think it's fair to say we have the best animal movement data set in Southeast Asia. So then in that sense, Malaysia is doing a very good work with elephants in tracking, understanding how they move. So then with this data, we color around 50 elephants using GPS collars. It's a device that we attach to the neck of the elephant, and then it captures the location using a GPS system like our phone.
No, I'm thinking this is not going to be an easy thing. Elephants, wild elephants, might not be so happy to have a collar put around them.
No, I think particularly because they can manipulate things, right? Elephants have a trunk that is like a hand, so then they're very good at removing things they don't like. So then they get used to the collar. The collar is designed to be not harmful. Of course, there's always some costs, like if you have to have some weight on your neck, you notice. Doesn't mean that it's making you harm, but they get used to it, and the collar is resistant. So then it's hard enough that the elephant cannot break it easily, but also it is designed to be degraded over time. So then in a few years, in 2-3 years, the collar will just break down and the elephants will lose it.
Right. So you use the collar, the tracking device, to do what exactly?
So what we want to know is how elephants move. Basically, when we study wildlife, there are a few things that are what determine everything else. In the case of elephants is what they eat. So then the diet is the most important choice they make. So elephants, they have three, or most of herbivores like elephants have three things to worry about. One is finding food. Another one is not being found as food, not being eaten. And the other one is finding mates, right? Elephants, because they are so big, they have no predator, they don't need to worry about being eaten. So elephants only have two things to worry about: finding food and finding mates. And we need to understand everything to do is to find food. So the next thing is where to find food. They move around. So we try to understand the diet and the movement to from there understand better how they interact with people, how they interact with the ecosystem. And these collars allow us to know where elephants are in a given time. So we can see how much area they occupy, how fast they move, what kind of, how regular are the movements. And based on this, we can understand how they use the space, how they use natural resources. And this also helps us to understand what are their needs and how we can work for conserving them.
Okay, so this research is also intimately tied to this policy or an idea of how to create a contiguous set of parks within the spine of Malaysia, the Central Forest Spine policy. Tell us about that.
Okay, so from this movement data, we do many studies. So then one that we just published that I think is very relevant because of the policy implication is to evaluate the effectiveness of the Central Forest Spine. The Central Forest Spine of CFS is a policy that was designed about 10 years ago by the Malaysian government, the federal government, to connect blocks of forest. So as you know, much of Malaysia used to be forest. About 80% of Peninsula Malaysia in the 1940s was forest. And now we have less than 40%. Much of this forest has been transformed into plantations, roads, dams, cities.
And the residential estates that we live in.
Exactly. So then a big concern for the policymakers was how we can promote connectivity so animals can move from one place to another place. And this was done by designing some kind of corridors that connect forest blocks, as well as some kind of a landscape approach into these landscapes that contain these corridors. It was designed on a paper based on some maps of the forest, but it had never been evaluated based on animal movement. So we used data from our elephants. We had over 200,000 data points of elephant movement in Peninsula Malaysia to see whether elephants will use these corridors, what we call connectivity.
Well, they're not reading signs, are they? Like, elephants go this way.
Yeah, so we read the science, the elephants just do things, and we interpret what they do, right? So then what based on the movement we have, we can see decision making by elephants. We can make predictions. What do we expect elephants to do in a given set of conditions? So based on that, we model for other landscapes. And then with our elephants, we're able to model all the connectivity in Peninsula Malaysia and to produce the first evaluation of this policy that is a very important policy. It's a very exciting policy, and that is very difficult to implement. So part of our goal was to see, okay, how realistic it is and how useful it can be, at least for elephants.
Okay, there's the two things. One, from our previous conversation, know that elephants are extraordinarily intelligent beings. The other thing is, when we think of connectivity, especially on the peninsula, we think of these big highways that crisscross. Yep. And how disruptive has that been to them, and to what extent do we want to trade our conveniences for the needs of elephants?
Well, you're hitting the nail with the idea of trading conveniences. I think we need to compromise. And I think the highways can be extremely disruptive. They can cut permeability, or then they can cut connectivity. And in the case of some highways, the elephants simply cannot pass. Peninsula Malaysia has been building some viaducts to allow animals to cross. We still don't understand very well how effective they are or how effective they will be. But with
the viaduct would allow the animals to go under.
Correct.
Under. Okay.
But the thing is that they only work in a small fraction of the landscape. The landscape is much bigger. So I think we need to understand that even those forms of smart infrastructure or green infrastructure, even when they work, they are not silver bullets. Okay, we need to look at more holistic approaches to promote connectivity. In the case of elephants, they are very difficult species because elephants, as we were talking before, they need big space. As big animals, they need to eat a lot. That means that a family of elephants will use an area of maybe 300 square kilometers in a year to move around. So that's a lot. 300 square kilometers is a very big area. If you have many families, as you want to have in a population, they will need very big areas. Nowadays, there are very few places where elephants can live far away from people and far away from roads and other forms of landscape that will prevent them from one side to another side, right?
Okay, I think we'll take another short break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned to consider this.